Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video, we have a special guest with us. We're going to talk everything about the UK, the myths, the truths, and some untruths that we normally hear. We're going to talk everything related to UK with regards to nursing. We have a special guest. We have Danielle Huey. Let me know if I pronounce the name right. Jamaican nurse doing quite well that is in the United Kingdom, and we're going to talk about the United Kingdom in terms of nursing. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And if you like the content and you want to see more, once again, like, share, and subscribe. So, Danielle, I want you to tell me a bit about yourself before we go into anything. Let the audience know who you are, where you're from, all of that.
So, as you mentioned, my name is Danielle Huey. So, I am a Jamaican nurse. I would have attended University of Technology in Jamaica, graduated in 2015.
Mhm.
I worked within the government system at Cornwall Regional Hospital for about 2 years before I then transitioned into as a clinical coordinator at UTech as well, where I would have supported student nurses with skills and the entire practical aspects of things. And then I migrated here in the UK, and I'm now in the UK.
Okay, nice. And just to let the audience know, we are both past students of the
UTech.
UTech, the University of Technology. You were a part of Students' Union, you said at UTech,
Yeah, so
right?
I served as the College of Health Sciences representative for Western Campus 1 year,
Right,
and then chairperson for Western Campus in general.
right. Very good. And we both graduated the same year.
Yeah,
Yes, and you were a part of UTANs too?
I was, yes.
Yes, and I was president of UTANs during my time and after before I left.
Yeah.
All right. So I like your transition in nursing, and you said you served as a clinical coordinator. Did you spend some time at the bedside before transitioning to that side?
So I would have worked at Cornwall Regional Hospital for a
Oh,
little under 2 years
okay.
before then transitioning into education, nursing education.
Okay.
Mm.
So you went into nursing education, not at the bedside, probably in a good job. Then you transitioned to UK. So what made the transition to the UK?
So I would have thought about migrating
Mhm.
not only to UK but overseas throughout my time from I was at Cornwall. I wasn't necessarily very enthused about migrating. I really was very passionate about my country and wanted to stay and serve my country because I thought there were a lot of potential
Yeah.
there for me. So I started the program. I actually signed up for Interstaff
Mhm.
and I would have signed the contracts and everything, but I never studied, I never sat the exam. I did the UK exam, I think from 2018 thereabouts.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would have done that exam and then not acted on it. So 2 years would have passed since I've done the exam, which it would have meant that it would have been expired according to their system. However, in the period that I came was in COVID, and so they were now saying even if you've done it over 2 years, they were still accepting at that time because I guess they were quite desperate for nurses. So
Okay.
I thought that I needed a change of scenery. Most persons who migrate, they migrate because of finances. That
Yeah.
was not my major attraction for migrating. It's not
Yeah.
that I was rich, but it's just that that was my main focus for me migrating.
Mhm.
However, I wanted to build on my career. I was working at UTech as a clinical coordinator. I wanted to go on to do my master's. And at that
Mhm.
time, I couldn't afford it at that time because I couldn't take a loan out to do my
Mhm.
master's because I would have already had student loan that I was paying back from my degree. And I
Yeah.
thought migrating would have given me the opportunity to build on my career. I wasn't necessarily feeling the US for some reason. And
Mhm.
so my mom was quite, my mom always loved the UK. I thought that I had a lot of church family here in the UK. So I thought that that would have been the best option for me at that time. And when
Mhm.
in 2019, when really started to think about it, it was the quickest as well. So
Yeah.
I decided to go with it and I would have already sat the exam. So that's why I decided to leave.
Yeah. Now you mentioned a lot of heavy points. So I just want to backtrack a bit. I like the point that you mentioned that you were very passionate about your country. You saw the opportunities and you weren't initially ready to leave at that time. That's the same thing for me too. Passionate, saw the opportunities, wanted to give back, but at the same time, you wanted to move and you wanted to do your master's and you had student loans already
Mhm.
and you wanted to do your master's and you didn't see a perfect fit to take out a student loan on top of another student loan. And I think that's what many people fail to understand, that nursing is a very expensive course. I don't know how many persons in my year group took student loans.
Mhm.
Took paid out of pocket. So a
Mhm.
lot of us took student loans. Same thing for me. I wanted to do my master's too, and I realized that I need to take out student loans. And I said I can't have student loan and go back for student loan. So it's not only finances in terms of pay,
Mhm.
upward mobility, want to better your family. So those are some stuff that people really need to understand. That's
Mhm.
not, it's not only pay that let nurses leave their country.
No. No.
So I heard you mention that the process to the UK was very quick, and that's something that I've always heard about. I know in the for the United States, the process for the NCLEX takes, it depends on the company you go with, probably 2 to 3 months. About 6 months, some persons may leave, or 1 to 2 years. I know you have to do an exam. Could you talk about the exams that you have to do and how quickly your process was in leaving, like the time frame?
So, um, I would like to say, because a lot of people, when they try to think of whether UK or the United States,
Mm-hmm.
I would say like nowhere is the same for everybody. And
Yes.
before I migrated, one of my colleagues that I would have graduated with from university, they would
Mhm.
have been in UK and they returned just as I was about to leave
What?
because they thought the pay wasn't good, the experience wasn't good, it wasn't making any sense, and they returned. And
Mm-hmm.
one thing my mom told me is that your experience may just be different. You can't
Right.
live off other people's experience. So I think deciding whether or not you're going to come to the UK or the States shouldn't. Yes, the time frame is also an option, but it's really what you want
Yeah.
that is important. And let's just get it out there: the pay in UK is not the same as the pay in the States.
Yeah, we're
It's
gonna touch on that.
right. So, anyways, because my situation was a bit different because I did the exam in
Mhm,
2018 or 2017 thereabout. However, when I seriously decided that I wanted to come, I spoke back to the agency, which was We Solutions, and
mhm.
they had found a hospital for me, which was in London.
Okay.
However, it was the same period of COVID, and it was 2020, I think thereabout.
Mhm,
And they weren't they I went through the interview, would have gotten the job, but and got the offer letter, but they weren't coming back to me with the certificate of sponsorship. So how it
okay.
goes in the UK is that they need to sponsor you to come here.
Right.
So once it is that you've passed the interview, they give you your job letter. They then provide you with a certificate of sponsorship, which is basically just saying that telling the immigration that they're paying for you to be here.
Mhm,
So they weren't getting back to me in regards to the sponsorship. So the agency then said to me, okay, do you want to do a care home, because they're not getting back to us.
mhm.
I didn't want to go into a care home because I was coming here to build my career, and I
Right.
thought that a care home wasn't going to offer me that, and I just felt like it was going to be a stuck area.
Could you
I wasn't
explain what is a care home in the
So a
UK?
care home is like a nursing home. So
Right.
basically, for example, individuals who are the elderly, they don't have anybody to take care of them, and they go into the nursing home. Yes, that's
Right.
what it is. I didn't think that that was going to offer me what I wanted, so I didn't want to go
Right.
into the care home. But when it reached to a point where I wasn't getting anywhere and they couldn't find me another place, they only could offer me a care home. I had agreed to say, they said to me, come, you can change hospitals when you get here. So I
Okay.
decided to do it. So, however, while doing that, I was just scrolling through Facebook, and I saw Cambridge University Hospitals, and I through CPL Healthcare, I think the recruitment services, and I just went in, applied. I got an interview like in the following week, and passed the interview, and within a month, they got me the certificate of sponsorship. it so happened that I got the certificate of sponsorship for Cambridge University Hospital 2 days before I got the sponsorship for the care home.
Oh,
So I then declined the care home, which they weren't necessarily happy with because the certificate of sponsorship does cost a lot of money.
yeah,
But then I agreed to do the Cambridge University Hospital because I just liked it. The whole idea of Cambridge University, I've always heard about it, and I thought, yes, that's a
yeah.
perfect place for me. So I decided to do this one, and I that happened like about March thereabout,
Hmm.
that I did the interview, got the certificate of sponsorship like about May, and by June I was on the flight here.
So
So
that's the time frame of how many months?
3 months
Three
basically.
months. So very
But
quick.
that in that situation I would have already had my exam. So there are two aspects to it. So there is
Mhm.
the theory exam that you do in Jamaica, and it's called CBT.
Right.
So I think it's about 100 questions, which is a multiple choice. And basically, once you pass that exam, then you're able to go ahead to start the immigration process.
Okay. And the CBT is, I think, is it cognitive behavioral? I'm mixing it up. What's its
I think they
abbreviation?
have changed it since
Mm.
I've done it, but when
Okay.
I did it, it was just a series of multiple choice, and it had drug calculation, different pathophysiology. Um, there's not a set pass mark for
Okay.
the exam. They grade you based on safety. So
Okay.
what you try is, if it is that you're putting your patient at risk, then the possibilities that you will fail the exam. And for example, if you do a drug calculation and you get the drug calculation wrong, then you automatically fail that exam. So
Mm.
that's how they grade it. It's not necessarily on a score basis. So that's
Okay.
the theory exam. The difference between the UK and the United States is that with NCLEX, you just do the NCLEX and then you're done. But when
Right.
you do the CBT, when you come here into the UK, you need to do a practical exam, which is called OSCE.
Hmm.
So with the OSCE, you have three tries at it, just like exam in Jamaica, license exam
Jamaica.
in Jamaica. So you
Right.
have three tries at it.
So the exam that you take, the CBT exam that you take in Jamaica, you took that in Jamaica, or you had to go to the UK to do
No,
that?
no, I took it in Jamaica, in Kingston.
Okay. Do you have to pay for it? Did you have to pay for it?
So yes, I had to pay for it, but the
Okay.
trust that I came with, when we came over, they reimbursed us the money.
Okay. So quite similar in the process in terms of the US, but the only difference, as we spoke about, is the NCLEX. That once you take the NCLEX, that's it. But when you take the CBT, once you come over to the UK, you have to take another exam, and then after that, you're admitted to their nursing council.
So just to say that the process for most persons who are just starting from scratch will last approximately 6 months.
6 months. Okay.
And another comparison would be that the CBT is much easier, in my opinion. I've never
Mhm.
taken the NCLEX, but based on what I've heard about NCLEX, I think the
Mhm.
CBT is much easier than the NCLEX exam. When you
Okay.
come into the UK now, within my trust, what they do is that you're employed as what we call a healthcare support worker
Mhm.
before it is, because you haven't gotten your PIN as
Oh.
yet. So a healthcare support worker would be what we would call ward assistants in Jamaica.
Mhm.
The
Right.
major difference is that they will do obs, etc., and a lot more skills than the ward assistants would do in Jamaica.
Mm.
So we are employed at that as that while it is that we are doing our OSCE exam. They do have us at home
Right.
preparing for the OSCE exam for a period of time before it is that you actually go onto the ward.
And do you get
So
pay while at home?
yes,
Okay.
you do. They pay you for it,
Mhm.
and they provide you accommodation for. When came, they provided accommodation for 3 months, but currently our trust provides accommodation for 6 months.
Six
Other
months.
hospitals may be different, so it's good to look at the package that they're providing you with. Our hospital has a very structured OSCE preparation, and there's actually a team dedicated to it. There's a whole module that you do with mock exams, etc., that prepares you for the OSCE exam. They pay for the OSCE exam.
Right.
Um, some hospitals will just pay for the first attempt.
Okay.
Others, like my trust pays for all three attempts.
Okay.
Some hospitals will pay for the transportation there, others won't. So it depends.
In your process, I wanted to see if it's similar to the United States. When the nurses are leaving for the US, it is recommended that they take a substantial amount of fees, like approximately 5,000 USD. Was that also a stipulation for you?
They suggest that we come with £600. Um, when you come within the first week that you come, they do provide you with a loan, which I think it's about £1,000.
Okay.
Um, the loan is about 600 because they reimburse you for the money that you would have paid for exams.
Exams,
So
right?
they give you about £1,000 that, but however, you're just moving into a country, you're going to be buying things, you may need more. Again, it depends on you. If it is that you're migrating and you don't have the £600, I would say have some amount of money, but you will know when you come, ensure that you work within the budget that you have. So you get
Okay.
£1,000 is for you to stretch it. You're not paying bills for those 3 months. You're
Right.
not some hospitals, for example, my trust will provide food for the first few weeks for
Mm-hmm.
you to get. It is trying to work within that budget and then move on from there. But I would suggest that as much as you can, you bring. It is very,
Yes.
it's hard because when you come to the UK and you're converting your Jamaican money into pound, it seems like it's nothing.
Nothing.
So if you even say, for example, you come over here with £100, that's like $100,000. That's like what, £500
Mm-hmm.
here. It can do something for you, but when you're just starting life, it's not really a lot.
Yeah. I
So.
wanted to touch on, like when we're speaking about that transportation. I know in the UK you guys have good transportation system, may not necessarily need a car. How is like transportation like when you got there, or did the trust or the sponsorship team provided that for you?
So when we came, they picked us up at the airport and brought us to our accommodation.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, so my transition was a bit difficult because
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of complication. The day before I migrated, my mom had a heart attack and was hospitalized. So
Uh,
it was quite difficult, and it in the difficulty of the situation basically showed me the support system that was here. And I don't
yes.
know if I was in the States I would have gotten that support, because when I came, my mom died 3 weeks after I came here, and
Wow.
they provided me with a loan to for plane fare. I was
Okay.
given all the time off that I needed. So I went to Jamaica and I was in Jamaica for 2 weeks, and I didn't even started to work on the word as yet.
Wow.
Um, I had just done my exam, my OSCE exam. I didn't get my pin as yet, and I was in Jamaica for 2 weeks. And I remember speaking to my manager, and he was like, "Take all the time you need,"
Wow.
and I was still paid while I was in Jamaica. So that's that's the kind of support system that was available for me, which in comparison, maybe that's one of the maybe the disadvantages in the US. I'm not sure if that support system would have been in place for that. So that that was the system that was there. But in regards to transportation, like, they picked us up, they brought us here. When we got here, it was for us to maneuver ourselves around the city.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, my trust is not far from the city, because it's like on the bus it's like 5 minutes.
Okay.
So in regards to, for example, it's not a necessity for you to
Right.
drive depending on where you would live. The bus system is available, and the winter, it's cold here in the winter. It's always cold in England. We don't have a lot of sunshine. It
Right.
rains a lot, but the winter is not as bitter as
Mhm.
that in the States. Some areas in the States, you don't we hardly have snow. Maybe we have snow once every 2 years, depending on where in this in UK you live. If you're going up to Scotland thereabout, you're gonna have snow. But
Yeah.
here it's not as bad. So the need for driving is not necessary.
Necessarily, right. So it
If
wouldn't
you
be a
go in
necessity. Mhm.
No, if you go into London, like, driving in London can be more of a pain than a help to you. There
Mhm.
is the tube system, which is very good in utilizing, but it depends on where you are. So where I live in Cambridge is very expensive. So people tend to live outside. If you're going to live outside, then maybe having a car is necessary. but
Right.
otherwise from that. And then because there is such a big thing on energy saving, so
Mm-hmm.
if you come to my trust now, maybe the CEO and a lot of the directors, they will drive their car from their home, they will park it at the park and ride and cycle in or walk into work.
Mm-hmm.
One of my very senior managers still takes a train. It's not
Wow.
that's the kind of culture that's here. So
Okay.
yeah.
I like how you touched on weather. I know for us, before we touch on that, I know for transportation here, when we get here, we do have to invest in cars, depend on where you live, because it's a bit spacey. So you need
Mhm.
like transportation to commute back and forth. And the agency does partner with companies that assist us in getting cars. So I like how you touched on weather. So I'd like to ask you about culture shock. Did you experience any of those when you transitioned to the UK?
Oh, let me just add something in regards to car.
Mm-hmm.
So, there are different types of system. On in the States, I know that most of the healthcare system is private.
Right.
In the UK, we have the government healthcare system, which is the NHS, which is the National Health Service, which
Right.
is not the best in pay, but
Mm-hmm.
benefits are tend to offer lots of benefits. And
Right.
so, in regards to car, for example, if it is that you're here and you want a car, um, once you have your license and you're working within the NHS, there is the lease system
Mm-hmm.
where, because you know, as a new driver here, insurance can be quite expensive, and
Right.
UK has a lot of tax. Is that within the hospital, you are able to get a car that you basically pay a small fee per month, and they pay all the insurance or the maintenance. They change tires if they need to be changed. The only thing you do is actually just put petrol in that car, and you get a brand new car every 3 years if you want to.
Okay, and
So,
that's if you're working with the NHS?
yes.
Okay.
So, for example, if it is that you're working with NHS and you get that car and you move to another hospital, but it's still an NHS hospital, you can
Mhm.
still continue with that car.
Okay, that's good.
So, the weather, when I came in July,
Mhm.
and I would have come here with a lot of coats and everything because England is so cold.
Yeah.
And so when it touched in November thereabouts, and I was, oh, it's gonna be cold and stuff like that. I was like, it's not that cold. But now I hate it. I hate the weather. The weather in the UK is horrible. Um, we don't really have air conditions in houses here in the UK because we barely have sunlight. We
Oh.
have well, not sunlight. We have sunlight. I
Mhm.
mean sunshine, like real sunshine.
Mhm.
Um it rains like it just rains, like it's always raining. It's when you see like that over the weekend we had like 3 days of really nice sunshine, no rain, and it was a big deal. Nobody wanted to do overtime because everybody wanted to enjoy the
Sound
sunshine. It
God.
was a good day and stuff like that. But apart from the fact that we don't really have a bitter winters,
Mhm.
that we don't really have summers either. So
So
yeah.
how was it with regards to the food?
So I hate it. I hate the food here. So coming from back home where I lived with my parents and my sister, and I didn't really cook, but I came home to a home cooked meal every day, which
Mhm.
I enjoyed. It was really hard adjusting to the different food.
Right.
The fact that okay, they're going to give me a food that is not seasoned and give me black pepper and salt just does not sit well with me. But but I've learned to adapt to it a little
And
bit.
adjust.
I don't unless it is that I'm going to a restaurant, and before I go
Right.
to a restaurant, I look at the menu and I decide what it is that I'm going to purchase. And normally it's always chicken or steak.
Mhm.
I don't necessarily buy food. The for example, in my trust there's a big concourse, and they do have hot meals that they sell, but it's always some pasta and some kind of sauce, which is not my kind of thing. So always ended up at like Burger King or stuff like that. The cold sandwiches don't sit well with me either.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
So the food, like I miss Jamaica, and the thing is that you see a lot of Jamaican restaurants, especially in
Right.
Cambridge, because I live in Cambridge. I don't live in London, and I love London. And one day I'm going to move to London when I
Mhm.
can afford to live. in London. But in London, you have a lot of Jamaican restaurants. You have a lot of the Jamaican culture there is quite rich. You don't have
Okay.
that in Cambridge, and so you may have one pop-up Caribbean food place that you try out, and it's not Caribbean food.
Hmm.
So I miss it, and now
Yeah.
I'm having to cook.
I think it's the same for me here too. So we're going to talk a bit about the big thing that everybody talks about with regards to UK and why many nurses prefer to go to other countries such as US or Canada and than the UK. It's in terms of nursing, in terms of the workload, and also with regards to pay. How do you see that? Do you see some truths in that in terms of the workload coming from Jamaica compared to the US and in terms of pay?
I think the workload is relative, and
Hmm.
it depends on where you're working. If you're going into a private hospital, the
Hmm.
patient's to nurse ratio may differ. It may be
Right.
less. So I have a colleague who came here, was working in the same hospital, but then moved to London. I think she's working in a private hospital, and her nurse patient ratio is like 4 to 1,
Okay.
um, which is not bad. Here, in the hospital or in NHS in general, the workload is heavy.
Hmm.
We have a lot of nursing shortage in the sense that the pay is not the best, and so even UK grown nurses, they go to other countries, for example Dubai, to work where there is better pay. A lot of persons who migrate here, they do their program and they migrate to the United States. It depends on what it is that you're looking for. The
Hmm.
workload is heavy in the sense that sometimes you have patient ratio of 8 to 1.
No.
The difference is though, for example, in the States, I'm not sure, I'm judging based on what I've heard,
Hmm.
is that in regards to like we don't necessarily, you're not necessarily, um, you don't necessarily have to take bloods. So we
Yeah,
do
it
have
depends on the
physician,
hospital. Yeah.
right? We have physician assistants we can call to come and take bloods for us.
Yeah.
Um, I think in regards to there is less autonomy here compared to in Jamaica as well. So, for
Yes.
example, I have a patient who is hypertensive, and I know that they don't have a heart problem, they don't have kidney issues, and their blood pressure is dropping. In Jamaica, I would put up some fluids and then ring the doctor to say, I've put up some fluids, what else do you want me to do? I can't do the same here. I'm now waiting for the doctor to come in and do that. So the autonomy is less here
Oh,
compared
yeah.
to back home in Jamaica. We have nursing burnout. And I think what we have, especially in this hospital, is not necessarily um vacancies, because I think our vacancy numbers have decreased, and we are having to say we don't have vacancies for persons. However, what we have is what we call availability, because we do have a lot of people who are off on long-term sickness. So there's not a vacancy there, but the person is not here in body. So that is a major problem. So because of that, it does impact on the patient load. And so the patient load tends to be high and can be a bit stressful. And that's just the honesty of the situation. I wouldn't say it is worse than Jamaica though.
That's the common thing that I've normally heard is that, less autonomy and persons I've heard just by what persons have said is that you're the nurse, you're the patient care assistant, is that you're doing everything and it leads to burnout as what you say. But compared to the US, as what you said, we have persons for various roles. If you have issues with respiratory, you call a respiratory therapist. If you have what physical therapy. So there's everybody for a specific role. Not saying that you don't experience burnout too, and it depends on where you work, where you have better ratios also. And then wanted to touch on pay. I've always heard that persons normally say that what an RN receives in the US is basically more than what a consultant or a doctor would get per annum. Is that true?
I wouldn't say consultant. If we're going to say junior doctors, maybe junior doctors, but I think based on my understanding is that consultants um, are paid.
Okay.
Good. um, may not be comparable to what the consultants are paid in these states, but definitely not what nurses are paid there. I just wanted to touch on in regards to specialty. Another thing with UK is that it tends to be quite specialized. So we
Mhm.
don't necessarily have general medicine and medical wards. We would
Okay.
have cardiac ward, we have urology, we have respiratory.
Mhm.
So what you have is that persons are tend to be very, you develop a kind of expertise in within those areas. It does have its disadvantage in the sense that people become so focused on their specialty, they forget the overall picture.
Mhm.
Um, but the pay is not the best, I would say. I'm trying to remember the figures, but the figures are on, you could just Google it. So
Right.
we have bands.
Yeah,
So
that's
you're
what I was
paid,
gonna ask. Yeah.
you're paid within bands. So the band starts as a band two. So initially the healthcare support workers were band two, but however there has been a the system has been changed recently because they were doing observations, etc. Observations falls into the scope of a band three. So
Band
all our
3.
healthcare support workers are now being upskilled into band three roles. So the healthcare support workers would be band threes.
Mhm.
Then band fours, we now have what we call the nursing associates, which I am the implementation lead for, and that's relatively a new role. Um,
Mhm.
it is similar to the role of an enrolled assistant nurse that we would have in Jamaica.
Okay.
So they would fall within the band four. Then you have band five, which is your registered nurse. So once it is that you've come to the UK, you've gotten your PIN, you now become a band five nurse. And all general nurses fall within that area. Then you step up to a band six. So a
Mhm.
band six on the ward based area would be those nurses who are in charge on a daily basis. So when you go to work, in Jamaica we'll have this person who is in charge. So that
Right.
would be your band sixes who are in charge.
Mhm.
So those are the band sixes. They're also responsible, for example, like doing appraisal for the junior team, and they would have their different teams that they work with, etc. So they take up a bit of managerial responsibilities on the ward. Your
Okay.
band seven, oh, band six as well would include your specialist nurses. So we have different types of specialist nurses in the trust. So you have your diabetic specialist nurses who, when you have your diabetic patients, they come in and see those patients. You have your tissue viability nurses, you have palliative care nurses. So all those specialist areas, the base of those specialist areas would be your band sixes.
And
If
the
you look,
band 6 is the highest?
no.
Okay.
So band five and then their band six are the specialist nurses. For a midwife, your midwife also, once it is that you've completed your competencies, you automatically become a band six.
Band 6. Okay.
Uh, then the band seven now would be your ward managers. So those are the persons who are totally responsible for those wards. Or for your specialist areas would be like your team leaders. So
Mhm.
so they, depending on where you, because you have the ward areas and you have specialties. So those individuals would be like team leaders, etc.
Right.
When you go up, you have band 8A, 8B, 8C, and we those are your matrons basically. So they normally take lead either for a group of wards, a department, etc. And
Mhm.
then your band Cs and your band 8Ds would look at your deputy heads of nursing and your heads of nursing. So the trust is divided into divisions. So you have about five different divisions. So each division will have a head of nursing, a deputy head of nursing. Then you have your matrons in charge of different wards, goes down to your band sevens, then your band six, right down the bats.
Would you
So
say that the different bands is similar to what we had in Jamaica, we have in Jamaica, like level 1, level 2, level 3? Because that's what it sounds like to me.
it seemed, and for those individuals who are in Jamaica when they had the whole pay revamp system the
Right.
other day, that's the idea that they're bringing into play. Because what happens is that with this band system, regardless of your qualification,
Mhm.
if you're working within that band, you're paid at that band. So
Okay.
you will have individuals who have a master's, but they're working within the scope of a band five, so they're paid a band five.
Oh.
So what happens is that within that band 5 there are different levels in that band 5. So
Okay.
you're a registered nurse, you have different levels and different points depending on your experience. As your experience increase, the amount of years that you work, you can increase on into that band, but you cannot pass the top of that band. Once you
Oh,
hit that band, you can't go above it. So in Jamaica, you would have a situation where sometimes you'll find a healthcare support a ward assistant, because they've been there for so many years,
mm-hmm.
their pay could be comparable to that of a registered nurse. You wouldn't be able to do that here because you would not be able to pass your top mark of that band. So
Okay.
once you hit that top mark of the band, you can't go over unless it is that you apply for a role within another particular band to get that pay.
Mm.
So
Another question that a lot of persons normally speak about is that they say nursing back home in Jamaica is quite similar to the UK in terms of wearing uniforms and all of that, the hours of work. Would you say that there's some truth to that?
yes, it is. So for example, it you have to wear your uniform. The regulations in regards to uniforms are quite similar. Not having anything below your elbow. There's quite strict on that. No nail varnish. There are some individuals who will speak about lashes.
Mm-hmm.
Just like in Jamaica, we do have problems. There is no hair on the collar if you're in your uniform. So those rules still exist. The only thing is that you do there's no hats here.
Okay. What
And
about white
in
shoes?
no. So but they do stipulate that it should be black trainers.
Okay.
Um trainers, sneakers. But anyways, black shoes, they don't say it doesn't have to be trainers, but black shoes that covers your foot, and they don't support Crocs.
Okay.
So
Well, another question I wanted to ask, in terms of, do they wear, I know you guys, with regards to the temperature, do they stipulate stockings also?
the stockings are part of your uniform. If it is
Mm-hmm.
cold, you're automatically going to want to wear stockings. If you're so the uniform, you can either have tunics, so you wear pants and a top, or you can wear dresses. So you can have a mixture, so you wear a dress someday, etc. So stockings are required to be worn. However, when it comes into the summer where it's a bit hot, you're exempted from wearing that. So people will wear socks and shoes. Some people will not wear anything at all. It's up to you.
Do you guys do like a 40-hour week, or do you do 312s in the US 3 days a week?
So the hours are 37.5, excluding your lunchtime.
Mm-hmm.
So it you have a mixture of shift patterns. So you can either do 12-hour shifts, which
Mm-hmm.
are long days. They fall an average of 7 to 7:45.
Mm-hmm.
That's the average. That's the shift is, and therefore your manager will manipulate or schedule how it is that you will meet the 37.5 hours in a week. There
Okay.
is also flexible work shifts, so individuals who have childcare where
Mm-hmm.
they're not able to work a particular time, your manager will sit with you and work a shift pattern that is best feasible for the ward and for you to work. So that's how the shift pattern works here. So you
In
get some
terms,
you in regards to break.
mhm.
So you work if you're working on a long day, which is a 12-hour shift, you get 1 hour break and also 20 minutes coffee break in the morning.
Okay. A question that I wanted to ask is in terms of going back to school. Is it possible that once you relocate to the UK, you can go back to school, whether to upgrade yourself in a master's program while during your sponsorship?
So I can share my experience with you because I'm currently doing my master's, which is paid by the trust. So I would have come here in June.
Mm.
I had a really difficult time because, as I told you, my mom died 3 weeks after I came. But before I went down for my mom's funeral, I would have done my OSCE exam. I would have passed on first attempt. But I had real difficulty getting my PIN. On the document that I signed up in Jamaica, which is the form for
Mhm.
NMC, which is the Nursing and Midwifery Council, they asked for evidence of English language, and my evidence was that I was trained in English. I would
Okay.
advise anybody who's filling out that form to put practice in English, not trained in English. Because I put trained in English, they wanted documentation from UTech to say how many hours my transcript, but on my transcript they wanted hours of clinical practice and all of that, which the UTech transcript didn't provide.
Okay.
So what they I had a really hard time for them to go ahead to change back the system to say
Mm-hmm.
practice in English, and then for me to get a letter from an employer or somebody I've worked with to say I've been working in the system for this amount of time and been practice in doing this in English. So it was really difficult. I didn't get my pin till about October thereabouts. So I was working as a healthcare support worker for that period of time. When I
Mm-hmm.
realized that I was going to take a long time getting my pin, what I did was just as a healthcare support worker, I just started to do overtime and perfect my skill as a healthcare support worker.
Okay.
And when I got my pin in October, thereabout it um so it would be I started to work with I would be on supernumerary, which is what you call orientation period for a month. And so I would have started to work independently in December. And in March thereabouts, April thereabouts, I would have applied for a band 6 job in education.
Mm-hmm.
So I applied to now come back into education, which I was coming from. And what was quite good was that I don't have a qualification in education from back home, but
Right.
they did value my experience and that I would have worked in education for a period of time. And I was successful in that job and started to work as a band 6 clinical education facilitator.
Wow.
I started that job in about August that year. And at that time, I became aware that there was the Continued Professional Development Fund, which is basically NHS providing money for the upskilling of staff.
Okay.
And so at that time, I applied to do my master's and I was successful. In my
Wow.
trust,
Congrats.
the application, the success rate, the approval rate for applications for additional studies is 99.8%. So
Oh.
there's a higher possibility if you apply to do additional school education, you will be approved. So it is available for everybody.
Are there like stipulations like back home once they fund you, you have to work back for the organization?
So there are stipulations. If they've spent over £1,000 on your education, you
Mm-hmm.
are bonded to NHS for two
Okay.
years. But it's not bonded to the trust, you're bonded to NHS. So, for
Delicious.
example, when I finish my master's, I can
Mm-hmm.
leave this hospital and go to, say, a hospital in Birmingham once it is an NHS hospital, and that's fine.
Okay. I wanted to ask, do you guys have like travel nursing in the UK as we do in the as they do in the United States?
They don't call it travel nursing here, they call it agency nurses. Um,
Okay.
so So the where you sign up with an agency basically, and once they appoint you to different jobs, and if it is that you're willing to go, you go to there based on. So different agencies may have different pay rates, and they have different like stipulations as to what they support you with. Some
Mm-hmm.
persons, depending on where you're going, they will provide accommodation for you, transportation, or you claim it back. So that's
Okay.
a lot of people do either agency jobs or those do what they call bank staff. So bank staff would mean that you sign a contract with the hospital, but you basically book the shifts and come in when you want to come in.
Yeah. Another question too are what are some factors that led you you spoke about some, but I know some persons I normally tell persons that migrating it's not only about money but there are benefits and factors, and you mentioned benefits too. I wanted to talk about like benefits that you receive as a nurse
Mhm.
that are so different probably from US or even Jamaica, like maternity, and you can tell us maternity, vacation and all of that.
So I'll start off with sick leave. So the thing with the trust or with NHS, you're or in the UK, you're able to self-certify yourself for 7 days.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not well, you don't come into work for 7 days. You call in for 7 days. You're still paid, and you don't need a doctor's certificate. So you only need a doctor's certificate once it is that you've exceeded seven
Mm-hmm.
days. Also, is in regards to sickness, is that um, there is no, in Jamaica, like you have 10 days sick leave, and then
Right.
once the 10 days is up, then it's no pay or stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's not the same situation here. Everybody's one sickness is judged individually. So your manager, for example, if you've been off, say, for 14 days over a period of time, your manager will sit and have a conversation with you. What can they do to support you? Is there anything they can do from their side, and put things in place? So it's a
Mhm.
continuous work in progress.
Right.
If it is a consistent sick days, like you're off for a few months, I'm not sure of the details, but it would be about, say, for the first 2 months you're paid full pay, and then after that half pay going down. So that's a system that they have in place for that. Different individuals will have different scenarios. In regards to pregnancy, pregnancy is not counted as a sickness. So for example, if you're off, say you're pregnant and you're being sick with the pregnancy, you're not necessarily graded or read because you've been off so frequently. One of my colleagues, who she had a really difficult pregnancy, she basically went off for a period of 2 months before she actually delivered baby, and she was paid full pay for all that time she was off. The maternity leave that is available, you can be off for up to a year. um, you are paid, I think, 4 or so months full pay, and then after that they pay you half pay, 50% of your pay. But also there's this statutory payment that they give as well, which somehow puts your pay basically to the same pay that you would have gotten, or sometimes can be even more. I'm not sure of the calculation, but my colleague would have gotten it. She was off for about 8 months. If you want to, you can always go up to nine, a year, taking off a year with your child.
Okay, that's true.
For persons who are still on sponsorship,
Hmm.
it can be a bit tricky in regards
Yeah.
to, because then again, we are still on sponsorship. So it would be until you've gotten your indefinite leave to remain, you're able to extend and get the full benefits of what is available for you.
Right.
The other benefit is childcare. I think what is that the work-life balance here is much better, in the sense they try to support you being there for your children. So your managers will sit with you and discuss how childcare goes. There is also a particular leave called carers leave that you're able to access. If it is
Hmm.
that, for example, you're home, your child is supposed to go to daycare, but they're not well, you can always call in for a carers leave.
Right.
There is, in regards to annual leave, it increases based on the time that you stay here. However, on an average, I think it's about, in weeks, maybe about a month that you get in annual leave for just starting for the year. Bear in mind that's just your annual leave. If it is that you're scheduled to work on days that are public holidays, you actually get those back as bank holidays. So they will come, you can use them for your vacation just the same, because they get counted as your bank holidays just the same.
Okay.
It, we don't necessarily have overtime here, in the
Okay.
sense where, okay, you're getting time and a half to stay longer coming in for a shift.
Right.
It is counted as a whole new job. It's called staff bank. So
Oh.
you sign up with the staff bank and you book your bank shifts and you come in, and you're normally paid the same rate that you would get paid as working your regular shifts. There are some wards that different depends on where you book, may have additional enhancement depending on the demand. So I know 2 years ago in the Christmas there was an increased demand for nurses, so there was like 100% enhancement. Now, if it is that you book what we call up center shift, and basically that's just a shift you book, and when you come in, they send you to where they want to send you. You may have like what they call rate three enhancement, which is like 55% on the base. With that though, is that once you've done 10 hours, every 10 hours that you work, you gain 1 hour bank holiday. And so that after a while, what you can do it is that you can claim this holiday in money.
Okay.
So yeah, so for example, if it is that you are somebody who does bank quite often, say for
Mm-hmm.
example, you claim 120 hours, you've worked that over a period. then you claim that in and they calculate the rates and then you get paid that money. You have to claim it. Like every year they have a period where you have to claim all that you've worked for the previous year when the year is ending.
Okay.
So,
Quite a number of benefits there. Another thing that I wanted to touch
oh,
on.
sorry.
Can you
The
hear?
other major benefit is as well is healthcare.
Yes.
So, so healthcare is not free.
Mhm.
We often say it's free, but it's not free
Yes. Please
because
repeat that because I heard that NHS is free.
it, it well, it's not free because at the end of the day, there is some kind of health insurance that
Tax.
comes out of your pay.
Yeah.
So you're taxed for it. For those persons who don't pay tax, it is free for them. But the
Mm.
benefit that offers to you is that, for example, even if you've just come to the UK and you fall ill, you have not worked a day in your life, you still have access to the healthcare system. And the
Mhm.
comfort that provides you with is, say, for example, tomorrow morning I may have a heart condition and I need a pacemaker. I
Yeah.
don't have to think twice to say I don't have an insurance to cover me because I'm covered under the NHS, and once they will provide all the resources for me and the healthcare possible. With any healthcare system, there's always long waiting times, and I
That's what I
think
was
it's the
going to
same.
ask.
It's the
Yes.
same thing in the States because I've had individuals who are in emergency department for a long waiting time. Sometimes we cuss Jamaica and we say, "Oh, ED, long A&E, such a long waiting time." It's the same thing in
Everywhere.
everywhere. It's the same thing, and I think to be fair, if it is that Jamaica had the resources that are available here in first world countries with the staff that they have, we would
Yes.
have had the best healthcare system ever.
Yes.
Um, but it's just how life is. But healthcare is it's quite accessible
Hmm.
in the sense that you're not plucking hundreds of pounds of your out of your pocket per month to pay
Right.
insurance for you and your family.
Hmm.
There's some amount of money that is taken from your pay. However, that's minimal to the healthcare that's available for you. So that's another way to look at it.
Yeah.
In the other benefit, I think, is in regards to when you look at crime and violence.
Hmm.
Um, UK, and then I said it depends on why you're moving
Hmm.
because UK is good for you to raise your children in the sense that every day in Cambridge, not in London, but in Cambridge, I can leave my door open every night. I don't
Wow.
remember the last time I've closed my flat door. My
Hmm.
friend, I live in a flat's okay, but my friend lives in a house and she doesn't close her door. Nobody comes in, nobody interferes with you. I've worked in ED numerous times. I've never seen a gunshot wound, which is quite boring at times. But anyways, I've not seen a gunshot wound. Is that safety that you have? There
Right.
is discrimination and racism here, but
Right.
it tends to be more subtle than in the States. People don't
Mm-hmm.
blatantly um, discriminate against you, and the racism is not that in your face compared to the States.
Right.
It still does exist, and there are those breakthrough individuals who would say really mean stuff. A lot of the
Mm-hmm.
times it's from the most elderly persons, and I guess it's because of that culture that they've developed over time, and the new generation have now adapted the fact that everybody is the same and don't necessarily see colors. But when you get those persons that are quite confused, they tend to verbalize a lot of the things that they're thinking, and it can sometimes be hurtful. But
Right.
you don't necessarily have that kind of aggressive kind of racism as much as you will. Well, I don't know because the media tends to show a lot of things that worse than it actually is, but
Yeah.
not as much as you see on the media.
Yeah.
So,
What about free education? Do you also have free education?
yes, you do have free education. Of course, with childcare,
Mm-hmm.
um, you once it is that they're below school age, you have to pay for that nursery fee, etc. But once they go into big school, we call it, or primary school,
Mm-hmm.
it is free. What you have to think about is maybe depending on the work that you're doing, is maybe breakfast club. You may have to pay for that or aftercare.
University?
University,
Yeah.
you have to pay your university fees. There are loans available,
Mm-hmm.
And if it is that you take a student loan, if it is that you're not working above a certain amount, you're not obligated. You're not, the pay is not taken from you.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is that it is automatically taken from you. It's not like you get the money and then decide I'm going to pay student loan. It is taken from your pay automatically, depending on how much you're earning.
Right.
So you may have some people who pay £100 for student loan, others may pay £200. It depends on what you're earning on a monthly basis, and then the student loan is calculated on that. For persons who are interested in healthcare, though, we have a lot of apprenticeship programs where the hospitals employ them as healthcare support workers, pay their school fee for them to go to university, give them the time off for them to go to university, and they're working while they're learning. And
Mm-hmm.
then after that, they don't owe anybody anything, and they're not bonded to the trust.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah.
No, very good. I like that. One thing a lot of persons, why a lot of persons, especially nurses, choose US over the UK is in terms of the sponsorship and in terms of what we call it, the EB3 or the green card. Within 3 months, you have that for you and your family. Compared to the UK, how long is it after you're set up for citizenship?
So it's dreadful in the sense that, as I told you about the sponsorship. So, for example, what happens is that when you get the trust provides you with a sponsorship that covers you for 3 years,
Right,
then if you can sponsor your spouse or children on that sponsorship, you will need to pay the additional money though for that.
right,
Um, the good thing about is that some for spouse there is a possibility for you to take your spouse over if it is that you're not married.
right,
um However, you would need to demonstrate to immigration some kind of bond. So for example, you have a child together, that is a good way to get your spouse over without getting married. So the sponsorship covers you for 3 years.
mm-hmm.
After the 3 years, the hospital will again renew that sponsorship for a further 2 years. After that 5 years have completed, then you're able to apply for your indefinite leave to remain, and that would be like your permanent residence.
Right.
Um, Within a year of that, then you're able to apply for citizenship.
Okay.
It's a
Uh,
very long period before you can get an
yes.
indefinite leave to remain.
Yeah. So I know a lot of persons, you may hear the statements that some nurses, and you had an encounter where you said when you were getting ready to leave, persons came back. You know, a lot of persons said they don't like it and they want to come back. What advice do you have for any nurse who is considering to come to the UK or weighing her mind, his or her mind, sorry, on which countries to choose?
When I just came to the UK, I too had questions in my mind as to why did I leave? It's no better. I should go to the States. I'm going to go to this. As a matter of fact, there are a lot of people here who are preparing to go to the States. And it doesn't mean if you come here, you need to be stuck here.
Right.
It can just be a starting point for you.
True.
When
Yes.
I came to the UK, it was six of us who came here. None of us are in the same position that we were.
Yeah.
Um, One person's a charge nurse on hematology and cancer unit. One is a charge nurse on neuro rehab. One has now done training and is now an anesthetic, what do you call it, assistant anesthetic practitioner.
Okay.
Um, the other one is a diabetic specialist nurse. I am working in clinical education as implementation lead. So the capabilities for you to progress is there. There are a lot of opportunities within the UK for you to progress. It provides an opportunity for your family. If you're looking at family, it's a more supportive environment for work-life balance. It is about you to decide what it is that you want.
Right.
If it is that you're really just about, oh, I just need to make some money,
Mm-hmm.
um, UK is not the place for you. I'm not gonna lie about it. It's
Yeah.
not that people are here who are here are suffering, who are not. But when you compare the money that you make in the States to the UK, the States make more money. So
Yeah.
if that's your life, that's what you want, then the States is for you. And I've always, there's some persons who will ask me about UK, and I say, UK is not for you. So if
Yeah.
you're that type of person who likes the really flashy life, that kind of thing, you're not going to be able to live that life. Um, well, you can, but I mean, it takes time. You need to build it. But based on my observation, I've seen individuals who've just gone to the States, and within a few months, they're able to live that life. You need
Right.
to build it here in the UK.
Mhm.
So I think everybody's experience will be different. For me, I if I was supposed to go back and I would choose again, I would choose the United Kingdom, because for my career it has definitely built my career, and for those individuals who have come with me, I've seen where their career has been built. Where, as I mentioned, there's six of us who came here together on that same plane, and I do have two individuals from that group who are planning to migrate to the States, but their reason for migrating is not money. It
Right.
is because, like, for example, one has a child in Jamaica and is being closer to home. The
Right.
other is because the spouse wants to live in the States. So they're going to the States to facilitate that. Nobody within that circle is saying, I'm leaving because I'm not able to survive in the UK because of pay.
Yeah.
So again, you have to just you look at the pros and cons of what it is that you want. If you have a family, for example, if you're a single parent, it's to look, is it feasible for me to go to a state in the States as a single parent? How does that work? Is there a support system in place for me? If it is that you have a husband and you have your children, maybe that's a better place for you to build a life together. It is also, it's about it's just weighing the pros and cons. I
Right.
cannot say it, I'm not going to say to anybody that listen, go to the States. I'm not going to
Right.
say to anybody, come to the UK. I've come to the UK, I've not regretted it. Career wise, I don't necessarily see a lot of persons in the States who have progressed so rapidly in their career in the time space that I have progressed, or have been able to say they have been employed by a trust, and within less than a year the trust is spending thousands of pounds to give them a master's degree or sending them for training. My friend went ahead and did her training as well. I don't see that. So it depends on what you want, and the opportunity is there wherever
Right.
you go. They're going to be, if you go to the States, I'm sure there are difficulties in the States as well. People in the States have financial problems just the same. People, there are different challenges wherever you go.
Right.
I would say weigh your pros and cons. Look at the benefits. The banding for the pay is there. Look at the pay grade. Look at what the cost of living is like. Look at where you go, because
Right.
London pays better than other countries.
Right.
Um, but yet again, Cambridge is quite expensive, similar to London. However, the same pay I get in Cambridge, the same pay people would get in Birmingham, but the cost of
Mhm.
living in Birmingham is way less than it is in Cambridge. So it depends on it. It's looking at it to say what it is that I want to achieve out of my nursing career and where is best for me. It is,
Right.
and if you decide to come to the UK to say you just really want to go somewhere right now, it is feasible within the time frame, but it doesn't mean that when you come here, the buck stops here.
Right.
You can always come here. If you don't like it, you go to the US. You could go to the US. If you don't like it in the US, you come to the UK. It's about you. Don't let anybody change your mind on anything. Everybody's experience is different. You can either like it and want to go home, or you could either come and love it. So,
So, thank you so much, Danielle. I think I got the right person to come on here and speak to us about the UK. Really like all that you touched on and the honesty and the authenticity and the advice that you give to the nurses. And, on top of that, super proud of you in terms of your career and where you are to show people that, yes, anywhere you go, you can make it and you don't have to go to one particular place or country to make it. I wish you all the best in your career too. And if persons want to reach out to you, you're on any way platforms that they could ask questions if you want, or if they can reach you.
yeah, I think I'm on all social media platforms, to be honest.
Right.
If you go Twitter, I think my last name, then my first name, so it's Huey Danielle. On
Mhm.
Instagram or Facebook, it's my name, Danielle Huey. If you go even on TikTok, I think if you type in Danielle Huey, it will come up as well. I don't remember the other names that I've used there, but I'm
Yeah.
always available and I'm always happy to share my experience and to provide information to anybody.
Yes, and proud Jamaican, proud nurses
Yes,
from Jamaica.
yes.
Yes, daughters of the soil. Super proud of you in your endeavors and all the best. I'm happy, as you can go anywhere, especially in the UK, and you have done so much in a short space of time. And here to just dispel the myths and just speak the truth. Super
Yeah.
happy to have you, and I thank everyone that has watched this. And if you like our content, what we have talked about, you can drop other comments for Daniel in the comment section, and I'll reach out to her. And remember to like, share, and subscribe.
Yeah.
All right, I'll just edit